Hey everyone, Daniel Ramsey here, and today we've got a special interview. We've got Misty Soldwisch. She's an amazing person. I've ran into you on the streets in a park in Iowa, which what are the odds of that? I'm like, wait, there's a client. Uh, but here's the cool stuff about Misty. Number one, she is one of the best agents in the country, on track for over 400 deals this year. She's been a client of MyOutDesk since 2012, and we kind of have an interesting how we met story, which is great. And I'm just so thankful that you're here. Misty, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Cool. So we're going to talk about a lot of crazy stuff, right? I mean, you've got what I consider the real estate model of the future. And so if you're listening right now, over half of the US workforce will be virtual by 2028. And Misty is absolutely a pioneer in the fact that she hired virtual assistants back in 2012 before everybody else even had heard of them. So congratulations on that, right? But you're ahead of your time because let's talk about this blended, model. Why did you adopt it? What do you think it's done for you? And tell the audience right now, why did you go virtual originally?
So I first heard of MyOutDesk from Greer Allen, the founder of Boomtown.
Yeah.
And I was at a reception at a convention and just was chatting about what was happening in my brokerage. And he had suggested it as a solution. And I looked into it and, was a little like, gosh, I wonder how this will work. But I was really attracted by the fact that it was a really cost-effective way to get help with my business.
Yep.
Because, until then, as a solo agent, I had, been hiring friends part-time and, just, different odds and ends people that really, they were okay, but really not a true solution to what my growing business needed.
Right.
And at that time, I had a lot of REO business. And so having strong administrative support was just something that was really important. But, over time, I started growing a team, and that REO admin background that MyOutDesk supported just really naturally, because we were already building systems and processes, it just naturally led to being a strong backbone of growing an effective team.
Beautiful. What people on the call are always curious, how does Misty do it? Because you've obviously nationally you're recognized Real Trends. You're number 2 in Iowa, which is a big deal. So how do you right now? How are you leveraging your virtual assistant to help you grow? When we met, you were around 200 deals. You're going to do 400, so that's a full double. You're dominating your local market. I know who you coach with. We love Lars. What's up? Real Estate B School. And so you're really on a growth path, but most people will want to know, how do you use them so that they can consider for themselves how to use a virtual assistant to help them grow?
Right. So what I found over time is just any administrative task that is something that needs to be plugged into a process.
Yes.
A virtual assistant is a great fit for. And so, just looked at all of the different things that we needed as far as listing entry, managing loading photos, putting together flyers, putting our client contact information into a database, putting together mailing lists, all of these different things that just made a lot of sense. But then over time, I started having virtual assistants help with transaction details, right. Coordinating multiple offer situations, all of these different things that it was, this is something that I'm doing that is keeping me from being able to focus on things that are going to help build the business. Is this something that they can answer? And I'm always amazed that so much of the real estate business is really easy to be done virtually.
Really easy. That's what you're going to say.
It
Really
is.
easy.
It is.
Okay, so
This
let's
is all the system.
yeah. Well, you're right. Exactly where we were going to go. Sometimes we get clients and their hair's on fire, right? I've got 30 listings in MLS. We got 10 pending. I've just hired a new salesperson. I'm trying to implement a new CRM, and I've just been recognized by the local chapter. So I'm traveling. And so what they don't have time to do is create that process and system, something that you've done naturally and you've grown organically over time. So if you could go back to like early Misty, like the beginning baby Misty, right? What advice would you give to yourself to help you build systems and processes so that virtual assistants can really help you leverage your business and grow and scale?
So I think that it's really important when you're working with a virtual assistant to not treat them differently than an on-site employee.
Yep.
That just because they're not physically here with you doesn't mean that you don't get to know what's happening in their life and, you know, what their day-to-day life is like.
Right.
Because we want to be just as personally invested as anyone that's right here in front of us. And so that was something that like really grew with our team over time.
Right.
And as technology was easier to do that too.
Yeah.
But that's very important. But then it's also important just you have to carve that time out to be willing to define what it is that you need from them. Otherwise, they can't be effective.
So let's talk about the systems that you now have in place that you swear by, right? You do a lot of face-to-face communication with your virtual assistant. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So so we have a couple different things that happen at the beginning of every day. So we have a Trello board that is our operations daily activities.
Yes.
That they do a check-in on Trello that they share with everyone that's part of that board saying, here's my plan for today.
Yep.
We do an operations huddle. That's a video huddle.
Yep.
That then it's kind of checking in, and then it's everyone, you know, did you notice this? Yeah, I'll make sure I add that to my list. And so it's just a collaboration that's face-to-face in addition to the Trello board.
Who runs that for you? Because that's your next level, by the way. That's one of probably the reasons why you've really grown your production and are doing so well. But it's not intuitive for everybody to have a daily huddle for the operations team. Who runs it? What are some of the challenges that help somebody get one started if they have never done it before?
You know, we did it as a conference call for the first like 2 or 3 years that we did it, and then we changed to a Ring Central meeting. And I ran it for a long time, but now my transaction manager runs it.
Right.
And you know, I honestly think it was like the easiest thing that we did that before we did the Trello board. And, you know, it's a verbal confirmation of the different things that need to be done, because it's amazing how often you come up with it when you hear someone talking about what they're working on. Oh, I completely forgot about this. Right. And it's just a great connection. And then on a weekly basis, we do an operations L10 meeting that is via Ring Central meeting, you know, same as Zoom. And, you know, we have a Trello board that is for the agenda, and we let anyone that is on the operations team add agenda items to the board. And we just discuss collaboratively on the operations side. What is an issue? How are we going to tackle it? What's the 7-day due date items that need to happen? And all of our virtual assistants will, you know, talk about like, here's what I'm going to do. And then they'll share their results during the week on that board. We have only been doing the L10 meeting in that way for about 12 months. We did it in a little more simplified way prior to that, but that was, you know, that has been a big game changer for us, improving our systems.
Yep. And when you say L10, it's a level 10 meeting, which is from Gino Wickman's Rocket Fuel book. So if you've not, it's a brilliant book. If you're running a large organization, it's a great way to do, you know, issues lists for leaders to kind of be able to interact. And the level 10 meeting just really gets everybody on the same page. But the point is, you're meeting and you're doing it virtually with face-to-face communication, and everybody has an opportunity to give input and receive feedback. And that's what's important.
Yes. Yeah. And when that happens, like, it's interesting for me to see as the business owner, how it's created situations where they've come up with solutions that I wouldn't have considered. That's that right. A lot of times that virtual relationship makes it so that, you know, you're just giving them directives and having them do it, but not asking for their input.
Right. And they're the ones doing the work. So, and they also encounter the misses in the process, because we're all about checklists and getting things done, and you're using Trello to help organize that. So they're finding opportunities to improve your business. That's
exactly. And when they really have a personal relationship with everyone on the team, they are invested in our business finding solutions.
Yeah, I love it. Talk to me, like, if somebody hasn't worked with MyOutDesk before, what would you suggest? How would they leverage us to actually add value to, like, give somebody advice, right? How to work with us? What's the best way?
How to work with MyOutDesk?
Yeah.
You know, I think the thing that that MyOutDesk really gave as strong value to me at the time when I started was I didn't understand how to leverage personality profiles and all of those different things at that time. And now it's a really common part of my business.
Right.
Identifying the right type of people for a role and being able to save me that time and energy was like super valuable.
Right. If you could quantify, you know, the difference between hiring us versus a physical person, and then what's your return on investment like been over the last 7-8 years working with us?
So the difference between, you know, what I found is that, you know, what I would expect as an expense locally would be about double to find the same type of skill set locally versus having a virtual assistant through MyOutDesk.
And is that exclusive of office space and like computers?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess and it's not even that. I mean, I think that I had a need to, I just had a physical operations person, someone who's here on site, that are a couple different people that had parted for different reasons in the past month or so. And I was like, gosh, I know to bring on a replacement, I'm going to have to post on Wi-Fi, go through, you know, 20 phone interviews, 20 on-site interviews. You know, it's going to be like, I'm going to need to commit about 30 to 45 days to identify top candidates, and maybe they'll work out, maybe they won't.
Right.
And I knew that I was able to ask my account manager at MyOutDesk, like, do you have someone? Oh my gosh, I have someone that's worked for a team for the past 5 years, and they've had financial reasons why they had to let them go, but they already know how to do X, Y, Z. And I'm like, perfect. And so to be able to have someone that's like instantly up and running, I appreciated from the start that MyOutDesk, like, they'd identify what are the systems that you use, because we're going to have them trained to use those systems before they start with you. I know when I've talked to other people about the success that we've had with virtual assistants, they've really kind of questioned that. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's been a huge advantage, because I haven't had to train them how to use, like, we don't use Top Producer anymore, but we did for a long time. Loop, as that started emerging as something everyone uses, how to use our board's MLS system, all of those different things.
Right. What you've said but not said, which I want to be really, because I know this is a value to a lot of our largest teams. We serve the top 10% of the market. Like, you have to be at the top of your game to be a client with us typically. But what you haven't said is, like, you lost a couple of admin people and your company continues to truck down the road. Whereas most people who don't have a blended model, they lose a leader in the admin world and then their whole business, it blows up.
Right. And I think that something that when you have virtual team members, you're forced to document your processes.
Yes.
And so when someone else jumps in, there's a place for them to reference where things happened. Instead of it being like in a desk drawer someplace, it's like we have it in our system. We have something logged showing how to do this.
Yeah.
And now it's such an advantage, like with our latest virtual assistant starting, my other virtual assistants are training him. You know, it hasn't relied on me doing it. We have a checklist that he's going through, and they're showing me that he's going through all of those different things. And that is the most amazing thing in the world, that when it's not dependent on you to be able to do that, but that's by having those right people in place to help with that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And imagine you and I never met, and imagine you never hired virtual. What happens to your business? What does that look like?
You know, I can only think that I'd have to have a very different business model than I have, because the expense of having that level of administrative support would have made it so I would have had to cut other areas. And I have a hard time believing that I'd have a business anywhere close to what I have today had I not gone that route.
Beautiful. Let's drop the mic. We're done. Well, Misty, last advice. Everybody who's listening, obviously you've rocked it. You've done this the right way, and we've been in a partnership or like we've served you. MyOutDesk, we love serving our best clients across the country. Last piece of advice for everybody who's listening, what would you tell them?
Well, I think that a couple of different things. I think it's really important to think of any of the different things that you're wanting to do or you're already doing as day-to-day processes or monthly processes or quarterly processes. Like, think about, is this something that it has to be done physically, or can it be done virtually? And when we lost the on-site employee, we actually went through all of the tasks she was doing and we did a list, like, what are the things that physically have to be here versus not? And it was 90% of it could have been done virtually. And I think sometimes we're surprised by that. But so, like, really look at that, because it's just such a quick runway to get someone to be able to answer these issues for you. The other part of it is really collaborate with those virtual assistants on not just the things that you've said you need done, but asking them, like, what do you think of this? Or do you have any ideas on how we can do this?
Right.
I had no idea when I hired Nikki, who has been with me for 7 years, like, she can do anything with graphic design, with video editing. Like, she is amazing. And it just started with her, like, putting together a flyer for me, that because we'd been using a different system and the person was out that had been helping with it. And she's like, what about this? And I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh. And then now it's, we have just the project board of just her being creative and being able to leverage that into our marketing. So asking them what kind of things they can do that maybe we don't even realize, it's just, there's so much opportunity there.
Yeah, find out what their genius or amazing or what
Yeah.
they love doing, and then see if there's a way for you to leverage that in your business and add value.
And then you know, it makes it just a win-win and really enjoyable for them.
I love it. Well, Misty, thank you again for joining us today. Really appreciate you as a client and sharing all of this with the audience. You're awesome.
Well, thank you. I huge believer that MyOutDesk does an amazing job of connecting with things that are going to help make our business really thrive.
Awesome. Bye, Misty.